Thank you for joining us now to commence our next conversation. The Finance Acts 2023 is the fourth in the series of Finance Acts in Nigeria. The previous government adopted this fiscal policy model after its re-election in 2019 to support the implementation of their annual budget. The Finance Act 2023 was signed by the former President Muhammadu Buhari on the eve of his last day in office. But the effective date is stated as May 1st, 2023. The Buhari administration said the Act's the Act is aimed to promote macroeconomic policy reforms with additional provisions and amendment to specific laws to improve tax administrations and collection in Nigeria. So let's get talking now. We're being joined by Nabila Mohammed, research analyst at Chapel Hindem Hall. She joins us virtually now. Thank you for your time. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I want us to start by looking at the Finance Act 2023 and the approach, of course, the aim and the reasons why it was enacted in the first place. How do you think the current government will take this document and ensure they maximize it to the benefit of not just the government now, but of course the Nigerian economy as well?
Okay. So the Finance Act 2023, how different is it from the previous acts that were enacted? That's the 2019, 2020, 2021. This one, I believe, is more inclusive. It cuts across, almost all the sectors of the economy: tourism, aviation, the midstream, upstream, downstream sectors, services sector, just so that more people are covered under the tax net, and the government is, able to rake in more revenue from there. Yes, they made a number of changes. They removed a number of incentives, and this is all in a bid to make sure that they are not, spending money that can be channeled to other things on, allowances and investment allowances generally to businesses. So basically, in summary, that's what the Finance Act 2023 is about, and it's channeled, just towards ensuring that the government gets in more revenue for itself and support the budgetary expenses this year.
Considering some of the policy directives that we've seen in this new administration of President Bola Tinubu, do you think it's in alignment with the Finance Act of 2023? Do you think it's in supportive of the Finance Act? First is the unification of the exchange rate. Secondly, the subsidy removal is also there. And so we've had quite a lot of, reforms in the finance sector as well. First, there was suspension of the CBN governor, and we have an acting governor there. So, do you think with all of these development we're seeing in the financial sector, do you think it's in alignment with the act?
Yes, there is a part of, the policy documents that they released initially that says that they want to increase the tax net. I think the Finance Act 2023 is basically speaking to that line on that document. And aside that, the increase in taxes across, all these sectors that previously, paying tax, and the inclusion of, the new taxes is all in line with that document, which was proposed by his economic team. And I feel, generally speaking, in that document they broke things down, the timelines for each of these things to be achieved. And while I still believe that they would, review some things, since it was the previous administration that signed it into, law, we would likely see him review some of the lines in the Finance Act 2023, and this would just be to not just boarding the businesses generally, but also provide some sort of support aside the new intervention, the new, especially the penalty regime that was, changed in this new act. So, basically speaking, I think it is in line with what the present administration is all about in terms of, channeling and getting revenue from any and every aspect that we can in order to support their expenses, better capex or expenses in the 2023.
I'm sure before the document, the policy document was formed, perhaps the past administration didn't envisage the current reality that we have on ground now. If you look at the exchange rate, the official window is around 780 naira as at the close of Wednesday. We saw that. Yes, so we saw that. I'm sure they didn't envisage some of the fallout from the policy statement immediately this government took over the affairs. What are your outlook or expectations? Do you think they might, or there's a need to review that document in line with the current economic realities of today?
So that document really, yes, has a lot of ambitious items on it, especially with regards to GDP, growing GDP at 7%, minimizing inflation and fighting inflation, and also bringing down interest rates. But then another statement that was made by the incumbent president, as President Tinubu, was that he sort of prepped our minds to be ready for hard times, because all these reforms they are putting in place is not something that will yield results in the short term. But I mean, it's been a long time coming that we have spoken about, removing subsidies, doing away with the multiple exchange rate system that we had, and not leaving it in the hands of the market determinants as demand and supply determining factor of the FX rate. All these have been issues that we have been battling with as a country, and for them to for us to see that change that we want, we have to feel the pain for now. So I don't think they would want to revisit the policy document, because the policy document outlines it's an 8-year thing. It's not something that we can get the results immediately. We will definitely face, harsh economic realities. We will definitely, experience hard times when it comes to operating our businesses, especially for those that are captured under the new act. We would also see, the government just try to live up to that document, really, because it is something that is already lined out, and these are some of the short-term decisions that we have taken, and it's all in a bid to get something positive for the country long term.
Let's talk about two things. First is, there has to be a balance between stimulating economic growth and, of course, generating revenue for government. It looks like the more of generating government revenue was more pronounced in that document. How to generate revenue, how to capture more businesses in the tax net and all of that, because there's also the other side of the impact or the implication of that is that it's going to put a lot of burden on businesses. So how do you think we can balance between revenue generation drive of the federal government, and at the same time not leaving out completely the demand, or the need to stimulate growth in the economy?
You are very correct, Frank, by saying that we would have to balance these two things, because really, in terms of enabling environments, Nigeria is not there yet, and there are a number of things structurally that needs to be looked at before the government can really enjoy the benefits of raking in more revenue from taxes. The first is that we have to take care of insecurity. Insecurity is one fundamental problem that is hindering, the smooth running of businesses in the nationwide. And another issue is infrastructure. Infrastructure is very key to, supporting businesses and, encouraging them to do more. I mean, if you are working in a very enabling environment, you would not feel the burden of, paying taxes. You would, gladly even want to support the government to do things that would better your own environment in general. In fact, that just brings me to one of the, the elimination of the rural investment allowance that was done on the Finance Act of 2023. I mean, for businesses that are even looking to, support the government in terms of building infrastructure in rural areas like road networks and stuff, there's no incentive again to sort of, motivate them to come and do such things. So those kind of, truly the government would have to, look at other ways, the other side of coin as to enabling environment, providing essential infrastructural needs for businesses to thrive in the country, generally speaking. So
and one big task ahead of the Tinubu's ministers is, the responsibility of formulating sound policies, of course, that will not contradict the the document, the policy document of Finance Act of 2023. So, what are your expectations for the ministers? You have at the moment about 8 senior advisors on board at the moment. So, but yet we're yet to see the list of the ministers. So, talk to us about your expectations.
Okay, so for my expectations for the ministers, yes, that document has come out. There's no discarding that. But it doesn't mean that when they get into their seats and they really see the realities on the ground, they would, just stick to the book. If there are policies in that document that would have to be broken down further, would have to be, examined into details, especially with what they go and meet when they go to their ministries, their various ministries, it will be important to go back to the drawing board and look at those areas that the policy did not really cater to, or the policy did not explain in depth how to achieve those, changes, positive changes in those ministries or sectors, and come up with ways that would now be inclusive of what the new realities that they meet there. So I would not entirely rule out the fact that ministers or in their ministries would, stick solely to what is in that policy document. Yes, they would use it as a guide, and if there is a need for them to go back to the drawing board and come up with ways to, improve the realities that they meet when they resume office, then they should do that.
One issue of concern is, coordination between the Monetary Policy Authority and, of course, the fiscal authority. So we saw that in the last administration, where there was a bit of or lack of coordination between these two authorities. So talk to us about, again, your expectation. What kind of coordination, cohesion would you like to see with regards to the policy authority, the Monetary Policy Authority, and of course the fiscal authority?
So for the Monetary Policy Authority, they are basically in charge of reining in inflation and managing our exchange rates. And we have seen that from the 24 days that this new administration have come into power, they have shown that they are all about the two. That's the fiscal side and the monetary policy side. And they have started actually with the monetary policy side, which is, the unification of foreign exchange that we just had last week. We have also seen them remove fuel subsidy, which is, sort of part of the fiscal leg of it. And with that unification alone, last week alone, we saw, the equities market rally, and we have started to see investors, especially foreign investors, being putting eyes out, trying to observe what is going on in the market. Once we see these foreign investors start to go, we'll see FPI go up, see FPI go down, foreign portfolio investments and foreign direct investments increase. And this is just speaking to the fact that this administration, so far looks like they are ready to run the two policies side by side, whether monetary or fiscal. They are all about the two. So yes, in these 23 days, they have shown that these two policies, they have to run them side by side. But as I said earlier, it is not something that when we would see the impact immediately, but we would have to brace up for, the harsh realities that we face, especially in the second half of this year. We might see inflation higher on the back of the removal of fuel subsidy and, the in general prices of goods, increase in prices of goods and services.
Talking about inflation, in recent time we saw the CBN hiking interest rates to mitigate inflation. Yes, we have a new governor on board now, acting there. His first assignment will be to see how to curtail or mitigate the rising inflation. So, do you think he is going to be towing the steps of his predecessor in the area of hiking, the continuous hike in the interest rate? Because the meeting, of course, will be coming in July. So what's your outlook for that meeting? Talking about the Monetary Policy Committee.
Okay. So for our outlook for the Monetary Policy Committee, will they be towing the same line of their, the previous governor? In my opinion, they would look at the realities on ground. And as I said earlier, inflation for June, because May inflation at 22.4% did not entirely capture the removal of the impact of the removal of fuel subsidy. We started feeling, the brunt of it in June. So we definitely see June inflation skyrocket to close to 24% if possible. And with that, the Monetary Policy Committee would still, have to hike interest rates further. And it is not because they want to toe the path of their predecessor, but, to look at the realities on ground and see what would work for reining in inflation going forward.
Okay. Well, I think we just have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Nabila Mohammed is research analyst at Chapel Heat Demhan Limited. Thank you for coming through on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
You have a great day. You've been watching Business Breakfast. We'll take a break now. When we return, of course, we'll turn our attention to other important matters on the show here. Please stay with us. You're still watching Business Breakfast.